The disappearing middle. Or Atik Ahmed, an IAS officer who has worked on Karnataka's education initiatives, is a tall, quiet man who dresses meticulously with his hair carefully brushed back and given to considering his answers for a long moment before he responds. Atik is a picture of contradictions. He is incredibly mild mannered, yet speaks his mind on the weaknesses he has witnessed in our school policies. One of the biggest challenges he says that we face in Indian education is that everyone but the poorest and most illiterate parents have abandoned our government schools. The parents that still place children in each schools, he says, don't really know what a good education is. Unfortunately, institutional reform in the country is usually the overcome of pressure from the middle and educated classes. The opinions of the working poor get underrepresented in public domains due to their illiteracy, and their lack of access to information also limits them when it comes to comparing good and bad systems and demanding reform. The middle class often has both members and public voice in their favor, and their participation in India's state education system was critical in maintaining education and teaching standards. But the language policy introduced in Indian government schools had middle class and educated parents fleeing the premises. In the first flush of regional pride post independence, most Indian states had picked their own languages as a medium of instruction in state schools. Their own language, especially at the primary and secondary levels. Much of the middle class who wanted their children to be educated in English pulled their kids out of these schools and put them in private schools. These private schools were a hybrid mix, Italian origin Montessori chains, the numerous church affiliated, often single sex convents, schools run by private trusts and by Hindu missions such as Ramakrishna and Chinmaya chains. Even government employees were guilty of distancing themselves from state and municipal schools. Central schools were set up for children of central government civil servants, and Shoinik schools for children of military personnel. This has turned India's government schools into education of the last resort, the final desperate measure for the children of the poor and the illiterate, who were left to the terrible mercy of state bureaucracies and teachers' union. As a result, the standards of the schools across educations across indicators, the quality and relevance of textbooks, the monitoring of student achievement have rapidly stagnated. Today, 90% of public expenditure in Indian schools is on the salaries of the teachers and administration, and yet we have the highest rates of teacher truancy in the world. Across our state schools, teachers simply do not turn up, and one in four government teachers is absent on in any given day. Not surprisingly, students drop out in the droves, as one education worker told me. What's the point of sitting in an empty room? A house of cards. The fortunes of the single market idea in India have been closely and tied to the relationship between the governments at the center and the states. Till the mid 1960s, both India's center and state elections were usually nothing more than routine re election of the Congress. In fact, in the first three general elections to the Lok Sabha, Congress won 3 to 4 seats, and it's dominated in all the state governments except for the brief gap during 1957 to 59 in Kerala. But weaknesses began to emerge,